In this video, we'll show you how to diagnose and replace a U-joint in a 4x4 truck. We'll demonstrate a few shortcuts that will be helpful in the 1500 Dodge Ram. And as a bonus, I'll show you a couple of complications that made the task more challenging. Good morning. Well, just about everybody who owns a 4x4 is familiar with replacing the front axle universal joints, which tend to go bad every few years. This most commonly comes to attention when you hear a rhythmic clacking or clunking or grinding sound on the involved side. And characteristically, the sound is in time with each wheel rotation. So every time the wheel rotates, you get that clunk sound. I want you to watch and listen to this. Here I've put a camera into the left wheel well looking forward at the U-joint to try and show you what to listen for. The rhythmic clunking sound can be intermittent, but if you know what you're listening for, you can already hear it in this one. This sound is often heard better from the curb than from inside the cab. As the vehicle accelerates, the frequency of clunks increase, but the incidental road noise increases as well. It also tends to be worse with sharp turns, specifically sharp turns to the opposite side when the weight of the vehicle is thrown to the outside, onto the side of the bad axle joint. Now watch and listen to what happens when I turn the steering wheel sharply to the right. Did you hear that grinding sound coming from the axle? This would be the second time I replaced the universal joint, just to show you how much play there is there. So this is pretty obviously destroyed. So now it's off to the parts store to get a new universal joint before I get started. In my experience, the most common reason these universal joints go bad is because if you're using four-wheel drive on a hard surface and the wheel can't turn. Right now I want to check to make sure the wheel bearing is okay before I get started, so I'll be able to replace the wheel bearing at the same time if it needs it. Now this is a McPherson strut system, and so you do it with the wheel unloaded. You go to the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position and try and move it, and it doesn't move at all. And to just check the tie rods are fine as well. So it's just the universal joint we need. Here's the new part. That's my part number from Napa. This is the best quality they had in stock. And here's the U-joint, and it has needle bearings all the way around each of these caps that allow the rotation that you're looking for. It comes with a style of a Zerk fitting. I don't particularly like the style, but in any case it's there. And it comes with these C-clips. And these C-clips hold the caps in place once you've got the universal joint assembled. And so we got to get the old clips off before we can get this apart. Now let me show you how this comes apart. To be careful here. And there's a palisade of roller bearings there. Can you see that? Now I got to be really careful at this stage because you don't want those falling out. It's only grease it's holding them in at the moment. The emergency brake is on, the wheels are chocolate. Let's get the wheel off. Let's get the caliper off. It's held in place by two SAE bolts are 3/8. My metrics don't fit. I suppose a 9mm would do, but I don't have a 9. To get the caliper off, in anticipation of putting it back on again, I want to compress the slave cylinder a little bit, so I'm just squeezing it a little bit too. So conveniently in the Dodge Ram, you got a place to put the caliper without having to hang it. Right there. The pads and rotor look to be fine. So here's the joint we need to get out, and we need to get it past this wheel bearing, and of course it won't go through the wheel bearing, and so the wheel bearing needs to come out as well. Now at this point a lot of guys will take off this 1 3/4 nut, and you can do that. And the advantage to doing that is when you get it out, you don't have the wheel bearing with the axle, and so it's a little less bulky. But the disadvantage is the effort of having to take this off. I do have an 1 3/4 socket, but I discovered that you don't need to do that with this vehicle. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this socket. It's a 9/16 socket, and there are 3 bolts holding the whole thing in place. I'm going to loosen those off, and I'm going to pound on the socket, and we're going to pull the wheel bearing and the axle out together. Now to get at that last bolt on the other side, I'm going to turn the steering wheel the other way. Now you notice I haven't undone those bolts all the way, they're still in the threads. And so now I'm going to tap on the socket in the threads and see if I can jar it loose. See the gap forming now? There, that feels like I can get it all out. So I'm going to take these bolts out the rest of the way. Just look at the way the dust guard is sitting, because you'll need to reproduce that so it'll fit later with the caliper. I think this is going to come out now. Now you want to be careful here because there's a seal deep in the back, and if you distort or push that seal in, especially when you're putting it back in, you're going to have a problem. You'll have to take the diff cover off. There we are. Take the dust plates off. This one on the inside. This one here with the scoop side in, like that. So here's a new C-clip, just so you know what they look like. They have different thicknesses, so you want this balance. You want to have this same thickness on each side so there's no weight imbalance in the universal joint. And these C-clips hold the caps in place. And I'll just show you the magnifier. I think I've got a view of an edge of one. So I don't know if you can see this, but right there. That's the edge of one of them. And so it's going to be a bit hard for me to show you how to do this, but basically I'm taking my hammer and my little broken screwdriver, and I'm going to tap those C-clips and try and get them removed. I need all 4 of them removed. So there's the first one. You see I've got one there. It seems to be caught on the back side. I don't want to break it. Keep working at this. Have a look at this. Interesting, this one here doesn't seem to have the clip anymore, and if you look closely you can see it looks to me like the cap is broken right there. You see that? It's broken right off. So I think that probably happened in the vehicle at some point. You see all the needle bearings are gone. So here's the wheel bearing, and here's our universal joint, and these are the caps. Here's one, a second, third, and fourth, and all the caps have to be pushed out individually. And there's a bunch of different ways of doing it, and I'm going to show you on the vise just because one of the ways of doing it is on the vise, but there are 3 important principles. The first is you don't want to be denting the shaft because the shaft is balanced, and if you dent the shaft, put it out around or whatever, you're going to have a wobble afterwards. The second thing is that although it's okay to pound on the cross here to get the device out, you don't want to be doing that to the new one for the same reason. And the third and the most important thing is you don't want to be beating on an unsupported ear. You see these ears here. You might be tempted that to get the bottom cap out, you'd push this all the way down, but the problem is that this ear is unsupported. If you push this down, it'll cause distortion of the ear, and the ear has got to be perfectly aligned to the other side. So this is my ball joint removal tool. It's from Princess Auto. You can borrow these from parts stores, and basically it's a giant C-clamp with various adapters. So I made this little adapter last year as a generic tool for all joints, but it should work well with the Dodge. Okay, let me show you how I've got this. I've got that adapter tool, so I'm not pressing on this ear, and we're going to push the cap out right there through that hole. And again, we're pressing on the ears, pushing this bottom cap out, and so we're not affecting this at all, and the bottom cap is well supported, so it's all good. There's the cap there. And there it is. Wow, look at how broken it is. Alright, there we are. Dang, look what's happened here. So the whole top of the cap let loose, and we've still got the sides of the cap in place, so we're going to have to get those out. All right, that's caps out nicely. Okay, here's where we're at. We've broken off the cap here. I wondered if I had a tiny fragment of retaining clip that was still in place, and I found that little fragment that was deep inside there. But even with that out, I'm not able to get that part out, and more importantly, I can't get the cross out because there's not enough clearance here. And so I think the simplest and quickest way of dealing with this is just to cut this off with the cutting torch. That'll give me better access to the cup. Here's what it looks like a couple of days later. These things are supposed to be full of grease, although a failed bearing is likely dry. In any case, when you blow across that with a cutting torch, you could have the grease flare up on you and you could have a little bit of a flame. But the reality is that if you're wearing proper equipment, it shouldn't be a big issue. I've got it moving a bit, trying to push it out. I'm not happy with pushing it out the other way. It's just been too hard. So there must be a little fragment of retaining clip remaining. So I'm going to try and push it out from below, from the other side. Finally. I'm going to use a little anti-seize here. I've cleaned it all off, and now we'll just put this around here with the hope that we don't run into the same kind of problems if we have to do this again at some point in the future. Now they say these caps may be balanced and matched, so you don't want to get them mixed up. I'm going to put the Zerk fitting on this end just to make it a little bit more accessible later. All right, let's do the other side now. And then just in with the C-clips. All right, this looks pretty good. Got it together. It seems to be fairly mobile. I don't have any major issues. So now I'm going to grease it. And it's got a little grease fitting here, so we'll just do this. Interestingly, my friend John Kelly at Weber Automotive says that the best universal joints are the ones that don't have Zerk fittings. And his argument is that the ones without Zerk fittings have better seals and are less likely to lose lubricant over a period of time. The fact is that most people who do oil changes don't bother to grease these, and over the course of years they lose their lubricant and eventually die. Of course, you want to do everything you can to make it easier for the next guy who comes by. In this case, I'm probably going to be the next guy. And then a little anti-seize. I've cleaned this all off. I've cleaned the axle tube. In the bigger engines, there actually is a seal here and a seal inside, but this one has only one seal deep inside, and you don't want to disrupt that because you'll have to take the diff cover off to replace it if you do that. So I'm going to coat this with gear oil just to make it easier for it to go past that seal. Wish me luck on this one. The left side seal is usually pretty easy to change, but the right side seal is a real pain. Okay, I'm at that. Bearing. Now the seal. Okay. I'm such a goof. What'd your dad always tell you? Never forget the condom. Let's do it again. I always have to look it up, but it's 110 foot-pounds for the Dodge Ram at this particular vintage. I'm going to shut it off from there. I hope this video helped you out. Thanks for watching.